Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Peaceful Living NH. If this is your first time here, my name is Chantal. Today we are going to be working on planting this long border over here to create a beautiful display. And one of the main things that we are going to be using is this beautiful Limelight. No, sorry, not Limelight. This is the Pinky Winky Prime Hydrangea from Proven Winners, and it grows about 6 to 9 feet tall and wide. So it's going to be a pretty big hydrangea, but this is perfect because it's going to create this beautiful full hedge in here. Here's a different variety of hydrangea. This is the oak leaf hydrangea, Gatsby Gal, and it grows about 8 by 8. Its blooms are pretty similar to what the Pinky Winky Hydrangea Prime are going to be. They're more open and easier for the pollinators to access them, and they are going to be turning a pink color in the fall. And here's another variety of hydrangea. This is a big leaf hydrangea, Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea. Again, it's a Proven Winners variety. It's beautiful, and you can see here its bloom color changes with the pH of the soil. And over here you can see there's a variation of color in the blooms because of the more neutral pH in here. So I want to first, before we start on planting, I want to give you some pointers on what to do when you are tackling such a long space. So just to give you some perspective, over here we have 15 hydrangeas, and each of them grows about 9 feet tall and wide. That is a huge space, and they are spaced 9 feet apart from each other. Of course, we will be positioning them away from the road, but just for now, because we have some plants in here that we want to keep, I put them close to the road, and then we will be positioning them where they're supposed to be a little bit later on. When you are starting a space like this can be a bit overwhelming. It's a huge space, it can be cost prohibitive. So here are a few tips on what to do when you are beginning with a huge space like this. So you want to first start with your shrubs and your trees. Right now we are starting with our shrubs because that's just going to give us a beautiful impact immediately as soon as they start putting on some growth. The shrubs and trees can be the most expensive. It's important to plant them all at the same time when it comes to the same variety, whether it is shrubs or trees, so that they can all grow at the same rate and not have some of them be bigger or smaller than the rest. You want them all to look cohesive, especially if you are creating a hedge. And because this can be so expensive, you want to divide your costs over maybe several years. So it's going to take some time, but that's okay. It's important to be patient when you are tackling a project like this, unless you have the budget for it, of course. So we started by dividing the budget into several years. We first started with our Pinky Winky Prime right here, and we notice we have small plants. If you purchase small plants, it's going to be a lot less expensive than if you were starting with larger plants. When it comes to the trees, we're taking some cuttings from our junipers, and we're going to be also placing these in between the hydrangeas once the cuttings are large enough. You don't want to place little tiny cuttings in a flower bed like this because those will just disappear and they're probably not going to make it. So you're better off having them in containers, establishing them, allowing them to grow a little bit, especially if you have cuttings or if you purchase them in small containers like plugs, for example. You want to let those grow a little bit before you plant them so that they're more likely to survive. Now, if you live in a really cold environment, and that can be a problem if they are not able to survive outside, you can stash them in your garage for the winter and just make sure that they won't dry out. Just keep them watered every now and then. We have successfully done that with many of our plants. We don't have a greenhouse at the moment. We're just starting out with our small home-based nursery business, so we appreciate all of your support. And so This is something that you can do. Just stash your plants in the garage or in your basement if you have to, and just keep them watered. In the basement, they're going to need some light, but for evergreens, I just had them in the garage, gave them a little bit of water, and they were fine. Brought them out, and now they're putting on some growth. So again, just divide your costs into multiple years. Start first with the shrubs and trees. That's going to be your biggest impact. And then you can start adding some perennials and annuals. Now, I'm breaking the rules over here. I did put some annuals in here. We had tons of petunias that needed to go in the ground. So these are all planted in the ground right now. They don't look like much because we've cut them back. It's important to cut back your annuals if they are leggy so that they can flush new growth and look healthier and fuller. And you want to give them some fertilizer as well. So we've already done that. That's going to be our border over here. We have the Shannon Wild petunias. They're gorgeous. They're no longer available on our website, but maybe next year they will be. We'll see. Then we are also going to be using some beautiful perennials. We have the verbascum. It's going to have beautiful purple blooms, and it will be attracting the pollinators. Since our trees are not ready to be planted yet, I wanted to add something tall that will provide this beautiful interest during this season, so that it can give us somewhat of an instant impact. We also have some delphinium. Delphinium also grows about 5 to 6 feet tall. It is the giant variety of the delphinium. I believe we also have this available on our website. If not, we will make sure to have it. This is the King Arthur delphinium. It's a beautiful variety. It has these beautiful blue blooms with a white center in the middle. That's also going to create a beautiful dramatic impact. We don't have tons of them, but we just have them scattered, one in between every few hydrangeas, just to give us a little bit of that dramatic effect. And these are going to bloom in the spring, mid-spring to late spring, around there. But you do need to stake them because those blooms can get really heavy and they can topple over, because again, this is the giant variety of delphinium. But they will make a stunning display. Another thing we have is the Rosemint Agastache. This variety of Agastache is just so wonderful. It's amazingly fragrant, and it continues to bloom for about 6 weeks. When the plant is in bloom, it's completely covered with blooms. The pollinators are all over it, and it does smell a little bit like roses and mint. It has an amazing fragrance. It grows about 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide, so it's perfect to tuck in into your border in the front, maybe a little bit closer to the front, leaving a little bit of space in the front so that you can tuck in those smaller plants like Nepeta and Heuchera, maybe some hostas when we start having some shade, and all sorts of perennials like so. So let's talk about why we chose the plants we chose. These hydrangeas that we chose are going to be blooming around midsummer all the way into late fall, and they will hold on to their blooms in the winter. You will still have these beautiful brown blooms. If you don't like that look, you can always cut them back. These hydrangeas are sun tolerant, they love the sun, and this is an absolutely full sun bed. So these hydrangeas are going to be absolutely happy in here. They're also going to take a lot of space. So they are plants that are just going to fill up a big amount of space. That means we will have to use less plants in such a huge border over here. This is about like 270 feet or something of the sort. It's almost 300 feet. That's a lot of plants to fit in this kind of a border. Along with the hydrangeas blooms, we have the evergreens that are going to provide us with some winter interest, because we live in a cold environment. We are in zone 5B, 6A, and in the winter, we are covered in snow. So when we look outside, it just looks so bleak and white. There's nothing out there to kind of give us this energy that we need in the winter. So having something green for our eyes to look at in the winter is going to be definitely important. We will be adding some skyrocket junipers in here because they are narrow and we can tuck them in between the hydrangeas. and they're not going to grow super tall because above us we also have power lines. So that's something you want to pay attention to. If you have power lines, make sure to choose plants that are not going to grow super tall and touch the power lines. Then you have to kind of prune them funny or cut them back. If you head back evergreens, that's going to cause them to grow wider, and that's not something we want. The skyrocket junipers grow about 15 feet tall. In the period of 10 years, evergreens do continue to grow, but they're a slow grower. They're not going to grow super fast. When the time comes when they reach maybe a height that's just going to be super tall, maybe even by that time they might get a disease or something like that, then we can cut them back, replace them with something else. But for the meantime, we can enjoy them. And we're starting with small plants, which give us even longer time. Other plants that we will be adding in here we don't have right now, but these plants are going to be also boxwoods. Those will also add a beautiful evergreen interest. They're a lower evergreen, so we're going to have different layers of evergreen along with our textured branches and flowers of the hydrangeas in the winter. So that's another added layer of interest. You can also add some different colors in your landscape if you are having less of a formal hedge. We're trying to create more of a formal hedge, but if you have more of an informal hedge, you can add colors like reds and yellows and greens and blues in the foliage aspect, and that's just going to create a lot more interest. But since we are creating somewhat of a formal hedge, we're not going to be doing that. We're going to focus more on structure and leaf texture rather than the color of the plants. We're still going to focus a little bit on that so that we can have a variation of color and make it more interesting, but not so much as you would if you were to create a less formal flower bed. One thing you might want to consider while you are starting a big project like this is to sketch it on a piece of paper before you start, just to give you some ideas of the plants that you want to have in there, especially if you're going to be buying a large amount. That's going to be costly. You don't want to be constantly replacing those plants because that can be a huge expense. So if you draw it on a piece of paper, maybe take some good measurements to know exactly the right amount of plants that you're going to need. This is what I have done, but I lost the actual plan with the measurements. I don't know where it's pretty loud in here. I don't know where it ended up. I'm just going off memory over here. Just make sure to measure your space before you buy your plants, and you can scale it down on a piece of paper using grid paper. That's going to be super easy to do that. You can have each foot to be one of the squares if you have a large area like this, and if you have a smaller area you can add more squares to the foot space, the actual foot space. Just so that you can see it easier maybe. And I have used circles for shrubs and trees and all the sorts. You can add some color to them. You can add some arrows with names to each of these things, or maybe have some keys like on a map. For each color you have a key, and then you put down your keys on the paper, at the bottom of the paper or at the top of the paper. It doesn't really matter, but that's just to give you an exact idea of the number of plants you need to purchase and the spacing of the plants. It doesn't have to be this detailed if you're not dealing with a large amount of plants, but again, if you're dealing with a large amount of plants, it's wiser to do so. Now let's talk about weeds. How do you handle a space this large? What do you do about weeds? There are many different ways that you can tackle this. One of the things that I've done over here is I planted a lot of plants that do tend to spread themselves easily, like the black-eyed Susans, and are super easy to pull. You just pull it out, super easy to yank out of the bed and plant something else in its place. This creates a layer over the soil, it protects the soil, and it stops the weeds from growing around it or minimizes the amounts of weeds that you have. If you just leave it open, then you're going to have tons of weeds. Another way that we like to implement is to apply mulch. And one of our favorite mulches is actually wood chips, because one, it can be free. Not always, but it can be, especially if you have a chip drop in your area. You can access their website through getchipdrop.com and you can get free wood chips. But the reason why we love wood chips, because as they break down, they provide nutrients into the soil and they don't have the dyes that the bagged mulches have in them. So they're going to be a lot healthier for your plants. And in the beginning, they're going to steal a little bit of the nitrogen from the plants. So one way you can combat that is by providing some compost beneath them. So you can place some cardboard over the soil. That's going to suppress any weeds from coming up. Then you place the compost, and then you place the wood chips. This is called the no-till method. But that's going to suppress all of your weeds, and it's going to provide nitrogen to the plants and to the wood chips to help them to break down. Once you start seeing some of that white fungus growing on your wood chips, you should be happy, because that means your wood chips are breaking down successfully, and that means they are feeding your plants. If you're redoing a flower bed or starting with a flower bed that already has plants in it, you might have to move some plants around to place the plants that you want in that area. That's okay. Plants are resilient. Just choose a day that's cloudy. Maybe you're going to be receiving some rain in that day. That's going to be perfect to move those plants. Spring and fall are going to be your best bet, but if you just have to do it now, choosing a day like this day is going to be perfect to move those plants. Besides, the fun thing about gardening is that you get to move plants around and things don't have to stay the way they are. We can change things, and this is just so fun because we can make things look different with every season. I've moved so many shrubs and trees over the years. I feel super confident I can do it. One of the ways, we will be creating a video on how to move more established shrubs and trees later on, so that if you have something like that, it will help you out. So stay tuned for that. But this one right here, this lilac right here, is not going to be a problem. It's not super established yet. The one important thing that you want to do is to make sure to give it plenty of water, especially if you are in the summer, so that it can establish its roots during that season. And we will be putting everything on irrigation once our irrigation tubing gets here. This way we make sure things are going to be watered consistently. When it's raining on a day like this, we just simply don't turn the irrigation on. And we will have to, in the heat of the summer, we will have to water about once every 2 days to every 3 days, especially with the hydrangeas, because they are new and they need to establish their roots, and they might tend to wilt in the heat of the sun, in the heat of the summer, we can get really humid in here. Before we continue, let's get back to tackling weeds. I have something here that I forgot to mention about weeds. Let me show you what I'm talking about. The stuff that you see right here is a weed suppressant. And the way how it works is you sprinkle it on the soil about every month. After you sprinkle it, you water it, and it's supposed to hinder seeds from sprouting. It does not work on weeds that are already there. It just works on stopping more weeds from sprouting. And if you have a fresh bed like this with no mulch over it and no plants, especially if you're just starting fresh with no plants around, and you're not going to plant something edible in there, then this weed suppressant is going to be perfect. Just sprinkle it once a month, water it after you sprinkle it, or just let the rain water it, and that's going to act as your weed suppressant. You don't have to spray for weeds, because spraying, if you have plants that are already established in there, can cause those plants to die. You have to be very careful when you do spray. You have to use methods to block the drift of the spray from reaching to the plants that you don't want to get the spray on. When we have to do that, we use cardboard just to block the spray from drifting. where we are spraying. So this is just a small area. You could just put a cardboard box that is open at the bottom and just spray inside the cardboard box. And if you're spraying a large area but you have plants near, just make sure to put a large piece of cardboard or plastic or something of the sort that's going to block the drift of the spray as you are spraying. So you just take it along with you and you move it with you. As you are planting, make sure to give your plants a good organic fertilizer. We prefer to use organic fertilizer because that's going to feed the soil, not just the plants. If you use synthetic fertilizer, that is okay, especially if you are starting out. But synthetic fertilizers tend to have salts in them that can be detrimental to the soil if you continue to use it over extended periods of time. So organic fertilizer is going to be your best bet. You can also use compost, manure, anything of the sort that comes from nature is just going to be perfect to amend your soil with. Again, you can lay down manure over all of your bed. Just make sure that it has been sitting for at least 6 months so that it can decompose and not burn your plants. You can use compost, same thing with that, and that's going to feed both your soil and your plants. Now let's talk plant placement. We mentioned a little bit earlier that we have spaced our hydrangeas 9 feet apart from each other, and they each grow about 9 feet wide. 6 to 9 feet wide. But if you want to create a tight hedge, you want to place your hydrangeas closer together. Because this is the widest that they can grow. That means in between the plants there's going to be a little bit of a gap. But the reason why we did that is because we want that gap so that we can plant our evergreens in between the hydrangeas. If you're not going to plant anything in between them and you want that perfectly tight hedge, place them closer together, about 6 feet apart from each other. We're also going to be placing the perennials a little bit in front of the hydrangeas because those perennials are not going to grow as tall as the hydrangeas. And the hydrangeas tend to grow pretty quickly during the growing season. So those perennials are going to be just gobbled up by the hydrangeas. So just make sure to give them enough space. But at this point right now, when we are starting with small plants, it's okay to plant them closer to the hydrangeas because they're going to take a little bit of some time to grow. There's a saying in gardening where when you plant something, the first year it sleeps, the second year it creeps, and the third year it leaps. That means the first year when you plant it, it's just going to sit there. It's going to focus on its root growth. Then the second year it's going to put a little bit more growth. It's going to start to show that it's okay, it's alive, it's growing. And the third year, that's when it flourishes because its roots have established, and now it can focus on putting all that foliar growth. So when that time comes and you notice that your perennials are being gobbled up, you can just simply move them. It's super easy to do. Perennials are one of the easiest plants to move. Do it either in the spring or in the fall. When the weather is cool, that's going to be the perfect time to move your perennials. But at this point, when we know that our shrubs are going to be small, we can place things a little bit closer to them so that we can have this full look. You can find many of these plants on our website. We will leave the link down in the description box below and in the comments section, so be on the lookout for it. We ship all across 48 states of the United States. We currently do not have any shrubs or trees, but we are hoping that in the maybe next year or maybe in the coming 2 years, we will be able to provide some shrubs and trees for you guys. The hydrangeas are all planted. We still need to move some stuff around here. And the verbascum is right there. We have all the perennials just scattered about in between the hydrangeas over here, some agastache, the delphinium. It's going to look very beautiful in here as it fills up. This verbascum right here grows about 3 feet tall and about 2 feet wide, and it's going to be producing some purple blooms. It's in the same family as mullein. And you can see the hydrangeas right there, this one right here, this one right there. They're exactly 9 feet apart from each other. So all this 15 hydrangeas and a whole bunch of perennials is done. All that's left to do is to put some irrigation in here, and I'll take you along when that time comes and show you how we put the irrigation in here. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you again in the next episode. Bye!